AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. America First with Sebastian Gorka, today at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Mr. 10%, the big guy, President Biden, will present his budget today, which will be DOA in the House. It's just a political document that's intended to offer the big guy the platform to say, well, there's my plan, where's your plan? You don't have a plan, where's your plan? And we need a clean debt ceiling bill, too, to prevent America defaulting on its obligations and cats and dogs living together and all the tragedies that will occur subsequently. What should Republicans be doing in response on debt ceiling, on the where's your plan question that's forthcoming? Well, that's been presented and forthcoming, and then when they mill about, Biden just says, well, their plan obviously must be to cut Medicare and Social Security. Oh, no, how dare he? That's been going on for about 40 years to Republicans' detriment generally. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Phil Kerpen, president of the American Commitment and chairman of the Internet Freedom Coalition. Phil, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. One thing before we get to the budget stuff, I just want to thank the voters of Chicago for dispatching with your horrendous mayor, because as far as I can tell, that's the only thing that changed between when Biden was against the D.C. crime bill and when he flipped and was for it. So I want to thank them. Thanks to them, we're not going to get lighter sentences for carjacking here in D.C., so that was good.
Okay, all right.
We'll help out any way we can.
You may want to hold your applause until the outcome on April 4th in the runoff, but right, dispatch.
It already helped us out.
It
already helped us out, no matter
true.
what happens, because it got 81 votes in the Senate yesterday. So the
true.
Democrats, for whatever reason, decided they have to look like they care about crime in the nation's capital all of a sudden.
Well, if we can help Democrats look the part, then it's, that's work well done by us. All right, Phil, so you've written about the debt ceiling issue, but sort of the larger backdrop today with the presentation of Biden's budget. The president's plan is to raise taxes on everything, essentially. $2 trillion of tax hikes, a brand new wealth tax, a doubling of the capital gains tax, higher income taxes, higher corporate taxes, a quadrupling of the brand new stock buyback tax that he just enacted last year. And he says that this will solve the deficit, solve the debt. We're just going to squeeze, trillions more in taxes by dialing up all the levers of higher taxes. Of course, the problem with that is if you jack up taxes on all those things, especially investment, on corporations, on businesses, all that, you're going to have a major negative effect on economic activity. And, you can't make any of the budget math work if you don't have a robustly growing economy. And so I think his plan will actually make deficits much worse. It's worth noting that last year, with the Trump tax cuts in place, we had the second highest revenue ever in history as a percent of GDP. We basically had 20% of GDP in revenue. So this idea that we're going to solve our budget problems by jacking up taxes on businesses in particular and on investment is really insane. Every time those taxes go up, revenues go down. Every time those taxes go down, revenues go up. We've got decades and decades of experience on this. And so Biden's plan would not address the deficit in any way. And in fact, because he wants to keep increasing spending on everything, it actually will make deficits worse. And Biden likes to play games with this stuff, right? Because he says, I cut the deficit $1 trillion. Well, he's comparing it to the peak COVID years when they were shoveling as much money out the door as they possibly could, as fast as they possibly could. If you look at it on a projection-to-projection basis, which is to say, if you look at what the CBO said the deficits were going to be for 10 years when he came into office, which is versus what they say they're going to be for 10 years now, he's actually increased deficits by $6 trillion in just 2 years. And so the rhetoric from Democrats and from the president in particular is the exact opposite of reality. And I think that what Republicans need to do is basically lay out the facts before the American people. We have a spending problem. Revenues were not just normal but high. The Trump tax cuts should be made permanent. They've been successful, not just economically but fiscally.
But we need to cut spending, and we need to grow the economy, most importantly. If the economy is not growing, if you have weak economic growth, then you can't manage any of the federal obligations in the entitlement programs or in the regular budget. And so I think they need to talk about cutting regulation, keeping taxes low, creating an environment that's conducive to growth, limiting the federal bureaucracy, expanding American energy, getting rid of all the crazy restrictions that Biden's put in on that. But they do at some point, they do at some point have to show what their plan is to cut spending. And of course, the conservatives demanded that McCarthy commit to that as a condition of becoming Speaker. The so-called clean debt ceiling is the dirtiest idea in the world, this idea that you should just keep borrowing more and more and more money and not do anything to change the path that you're on when you're on a path to fiscal ruin. I don't see anything clean about that, but the media and the Democrats love to use the word clean for that. And look, Republicans so far have proposed pretty modest spending reductions. I think the list that they put out was don't spend the unobligated COVID fund.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
It's like that. They want to do work requirements for food stamps. That's good. I'm for that. And they want to block the student loan bailout. Okay, all of that is great. They should definitely do those things. But that adds up to something like $700 billion over 10 years. We need cuts well into the trillions. And so it's a good start, but I think they're going to need to lay out a lot more than that. And, a lot of people point to the model budget that Russ Vought, the former Trump budget director, put out. I think he's got like $11 trillion in spending cuts over 10 years, and it's pretty aggressive, in particular in the parts of government that have been, destructive of the economy and of waging the culture war against conservatives. And I think that, Republicans have been wary to put out big cuts and defend them because they know they're going to get attacked by the media and by Democrats and get demagogued. And if they can't actually get any of this stuff enacted at the end of the day, then they don't want to put their fingerprints on it. But, if you want to be taken seriously and say you're actually going to balance the budget and you're actually going to cut spending, at some point, you do have to put your cards on the table because otherwise, I don't know how much headway you can make in those private negotiations where Democrats just will say, we're not going to do it, period. If you don't take your case to the American people, I don't see how you can win this. And by the way, the American people are with Republicans on this. Every single poll I've ever seen. Do you think we should cut spending if we have to increase the national debt? It's off the charts, yes. People are not stupid. If you were running a business the way they run the federal government and you were racking up massive operating losses and you had maxed out all your sources of capital and you went to the bank and said, I need another operating loan, give me, $5 more million. And they said, well, maybe, but what's your plan to fix the situation that you're in? What the Democrats are saying on the national debt is basically like telling the bank, I have no plan at all. I'm not going to change anything. We're going to keep running huge losses every day. Give me the money.
Well, right, but the problem, of course, is you just pointed to it, is that there are too many Republicans, including in leadership, particularly in the Senate, who are afraid of the implications of their stated policy views, and so they won't make the arguments. They're afraid of the implications of the arguments. They're afraid to make a case on this or much of anything else, it would seem. I mean, a good example of this is one of the items in the laundry list that you were running through, capping Obamacare subsidies at 400% of the poverty level. I'm old enough to remember when the Republican Party said we needed to repeal Obamacare. Now the position is we need to cap subsidies at 400% of poverty.
Which, by the way, was the original Obamacare limit before they got rid of the limit during COVID. I mean, so their proposal is go back to the original Obamacare. Is basically what the Republicans are now saying.
That we were supposed to repeal. Right.
Right.
You can see why it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence.
In a row?
Yeah. Right.
It's not great. I mean, look. Obamacare has been a total failure. I mean, it has not accomplished anything they told us it was going to accomplish, and it's driven up premiums dramatically. If you don't qualify for the subsidies, it's insane what it costs. And so, of course, the Democrat solution is throw more subsidies at it. But, that just makes it more expensive and transfers the cost to taxpayers. I mean, that's not a solution. And so I do think that, by the way, I think there's an appetite to be much bolder on healthcare in general than any politicians appreciate at this point. Everyone hates the big hospital systems. Everybody hates the big insurance companies. Everyone hates big pharma. Everyone hates the massive health bureaucracy that did every single thing wrong for the last couple of years. I mean, if there's ever been a time where you could, blow up all of the rules and regulations and bureaucracies and bring back independent physicians groups and let people have control of their own healthcare dollars and get something resembling a functioning market with price transparency, like this should be the time to do it because everyone's unhappy with every aspect of healthcare. So I don't know why they're not much bolder on that, because if you could fix healthcare, you fix the federal budget problem.
Well, again, the dynamic of being afraid of their own shadows. They seem to be some.
And I will say this for Republicans in the Senate: they have, it's totally gutless, but it is actually a bit helpful that Mitch McConnell said, the Speaker and the President should work out a deal, and then we'll take up whatever they come up with. I mean, that's fine.
At least it's deferring to the House.
Can come up with something worthwhile.
Yeah.
Hey, Phil, before we let you go, I wanted to ask you, because I know a lot of us started following you on Twitter during the COVID years. And what was your reaction when the Department of Energy finally admitted that COVID came out of the Wuhan lab, that it was a lab leak?
Well, it's interesting because I think that the establishment has always known that it probably came from the lab. They went to pretty extraordinary lengths to avoid ever admitting it or saying so, and then it seemed like a switch flipped, because you had the energy thing, you had the FBI director going on TV saying it, now you've got the former CDC director. I don't know if you saw his testimony yesterday. It was pretty incredible. Not only did he run through a whole list of reasons he thought it came from the lab, but he said that it was the result of U.S.-funded research at the lab in Wuhan. So, Fauci and the other conspiracists, according to him, I don't know if he's right or not, but according to him, we paid for it to be created in a lab, and then we covered the whole thing up. I think it's just part and parcel of everything that went on during COVID, where they lied about every single thing. They expressed they expressed 100% total confidence in their lies, and they allowed no dissent. They called anyone who disagreed with their lies a misinformer, and they tried to shut up people who had any alternative views. And I don't know. What can you say at this point? Are we surprised? I mean, I don't think we're surprised, but I will say, to me, it smells a little bit like geopolitics, like suddenly the establishment, wants to go after China, so now it's okay to say what was always obvious.
He is Phil Kerpen. He's the president of American Commitment, chairman of the Internet Freedom Coalition as well. Phil, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You've made the switch, and it feels so good. You've switched to Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business.